ITC 111. How are things? I hope things are going well for you. This week we're going to talk about tariff treatments. Now, most specifically, we're going to talk about this field right here, field 14, tariff treatment. Now this B3 is a B3 produced by the software MSR. We'll be doing the software next semester in ITA 311, so not to worry about that. But this is still a B3. I mean, all the fields are the same. It just looks a little bit different fonts and things of that nature. But what we're going to talk about is field number 14. Now to this point we've been using the number 2 in field 14 tariff treatment, and 2 I told you represents most favored nation tariff treatment. So we'll talk about most favored nation in a second, but sometimes when a shipment comes in, it will have additional paperwork with it, and that additional paperwork will allow you to use a different tariff treatment that'll allow a lesser rate of customs duty. As a matter of fact, if the tariff treatment represents a free trade agreement, the free in free trade means free duty, zero here, 0% duty. So that's why a lot of most importers want to make sure they use free trade agreements. So let's go back to the PowerPoints and just kind of go through this particular subject. Now, what are tariff treatment? A tariff treatment is duty rates imposed by customs officials that are parties of a specific trade agreement. So a trade agreement, and you've heard about North American Free Trade Agreement, Canada, U.S., Mexico Agreement, Trans-Pacific Partnership. These are all trade agreements. Okay, and when we have a shipment come in, if it falls under one of these trade agreements, we can use a different tariff treatment to get a lesser rate of duty. So I'll show you how that works. So tariff treatments are dictated by the country of origin of the goods being imported. The country of export can have some effect, especially on free trade agreements, where in most cases a shipment has to be exported and be originating in the same country. So the place of export, or the country of export and the country of origin has to be the same. So if you have a shipment from Chile, and it falls under a Canada-Chile free trade agreement, both the country of export and the country of origin has to be Chile. If the shipment comes from Japan, it can't qualify. So for instance, here we have an example. A shipment with goods that originate in the USA, the country of origin is the USA, but is shipped from Japan, the country of export is Japan, cannot qualify for the Canada-US-Mexico agreement because the country of origin and the country of export has to be the same. Also, the paperwork that accompanies the shipment is important. In most cases, a special form or certificate or a declaration must exist to say these goods qualify for this particular trade agreement. Actually, one part of that, if the shipment has no special paperwork, meaning all you get is an invoice, the tariff treatment is most favored nation. Don't be falling into the trap of a shipment coming from the United States, so you figure it must qualify for the Canada-US-Mexico agreement. If you have no proof, be it the form of a certificate or a form or a statement, then it's most favored nation. That's why we've been using most favored nation up to this point. So you'll notice when we look into the customs tariff, most favored nation has its own column, because most favored nation is the default tariff treatment. If you have a shipment and you have no special paperwork other than the invoice, it's most favored nation. But importers like to get into this column that says applicable preferential tariffs. In other words, a preference to go in this particular column, because this magic word shows up a lot. Free, or sometimes a lesser rate of duty than the most favored nation. This particular item here is free if it's from these tariff treatments, but it's a lesser rate of duty than most favored nation is from these tariff treatments. We'll talk about these particular things in a second. So if we have a shipment with no special paperwork or no statement on it that says it qualifies for a specific trade agreement, we're in this column and we use most favored nation, just like we've been doing up to this point. If we have a shipment or even a piece, a particular, we have a shipment with 2 items. One item has no declaration, it's most favored nation. The other item might have a declaration or certificate attached to it, then we're able to use this tariff treatment for that particular item, depending upon the country of origin. Now, what we're going to learn is all these different short forms, okay? And we're going to learn how to get out of the most favored nation tariff into the preferential tariff treatment. So, here are all the tariff treatments that we'll be talking about. All these tariff treatments come from trade agreements. Okay. Now, I've color-coded them because it falls into 3 different categories. And the first category is no special form is required. All you need is on the country of origin be declared on the invoice or certificate of origin. So, most favored nation. We put tariff code 2, just like we said before, and it's MFN, just like it says here. Okay. The second one is general tariff, which is signified by a G, and the third one is Australian tariff, AUT, and the fourth one is New Zealand tariff. So if any shipment comes from any country in the world other than Australian tariff, other than Australia or New Zealand, we can use most favored nation, Australia or New Zealand tariff, depending on what the country of origin is. The second grouping, in the blue colored, is trade agreements that require a document called a Form A, or an exporter's statement of origin. If we have these particular documents with the shipment, we can use the Caribbean Commonwealth countries tariff, least developed country tariff, general preferential tariff. And I'll show you what this form is in a second. The orange ones down here are all free trade agreements. Okay. In order to use these free trade agreements, obviously the shipment has to be coming from these countries, originating and being exported from these countries, and a properly completed free trade certificate specifically designed for that trade agreement must be in possession of the importer at time of clearance. So you'll notice there's a couple of stars here on the U.S. tariff and the Mexican tariff. They can use statement of origin as well, meaning to just have a statement written on the invoice saying the good qualifies for that particular tariff treatment. And the ones down here in the bottom are other free trade agreements, but these two as well only need a statement of origin on the commercial invoice. It doesn't need a properly completed free trade certificate. Now, you're going to be learning about free trade certificates in 3rd semester in ITA 341. But what we need to learn about now is when we can use them and when we cannot use them. So what I'm going to do is going to go through each tariff treatment quickly, just to tell you what documents are required. Most favored nation. Most favored nation is tariff treatment 2, and it's given to all countries that are parties to the World Trade Organization. And that's the one we've been using right now, and no specific certificates are required. General tariff. Code 3 is given to countries that are not party of the World Trade Organization, or Canada does not recognize them as parties of the World Trade Organization, or you can't define what the country of origin is. There's 35% duty on everything for a shipment that qualifies for only for general tariff. And basically a shipment doesn't qualify for general tariff. A shipment doesn't qualify for any other tariff. And there's one country that gets general tariff, and that is North Korea. Now it says here the country is not found on the list of countries. So let me just go to the customs tariff. And inside the customs tariff, it lists all the countries of the world, and it lists the tariff treatments those countries can get from Canada. So here's where you find, okay, I got a shipment from Chile. Well, Chile gets most favored nation. Okay, and Chile also gets the Chilean tariff. We'll talk about that in a second. So this is where you can find these particular items. Okay, back to our story. So most general tariff is given to basically North Korea, and it's 35% duty on everything. Australia and New Zealand tariff, don't worry about the ex-factory cost of the goods. All that stuff has to be decided by the exporter of the goods. So all these certificates that we're talking about have to be completed by the exporter. So we don't worry about completing those forms. It has to come with the shipment completed by the exporter. So no specific certificates required. It's only for specific. No certificates are required. It's only for specific HS numbers, and I'll show you that when we get to the customs tariff. The next ones we're going to talk about all require a document called a Form A, or a statement of origin. Okay, now these forms, for this statement, tells you, the customs broker, and representing the importer, that this particular good qualifies for these particular tariff treatments. And the first one is the Commonwealth Caribbean Countries Tariff, which is code 7. And Commonwealth Caribbean countries are countries that are used to be in the British Commonwealth, such as Bahamas, Bermuda, Cayman Islands, and are in the Caribbean. Okay. Now, how do I know which countries get Commonwealth Caribbean Country Tariff? Well, you have to go to that list, the list of countries in the applicable tariff treatments. And here we have Bermuda. And Bermuda gets most favored nation. Okay. And it also gets Commonwealth Caribbean Countries Tariff. So that's how you know that it gets that particular tariff treatment. Code 8 is the least developed country tariff. Again, if a shipment comes to a country that gets least developed country tariff, if it has a Form A or a statement of origin with the shipment, or that the importer has it in his possession, it tells you they have it in their possession, we get to use a lesser rate of duty, and the duty rate is usually free. How do I know which countries get it? Well, if I've got a shipment from, let's gotta find a country here. If I have a shipment from Burma, Burma gets most favored nation, and they also get least developed country tariff because there's an X under that column. Okay. Code 9 is general preferential tariff. And again, if a shipment comes from a country that gets general preferential tariff, and it has a Form A or a statement of origin saying it gets that tariff, we can use a lesser rate of duty. And again, how do I tell? If there's an X under general preferential tariff, GPT column, that country gets it. Now you notice a country to get least developed country tariff has to get general preferential tariff. But some countries who get general preferential tariff do not get least developed country tariff. So it all depends what's on this particular document. So you have to look it up. You can't take the importer's word for it. Now this statement of origin, okay, looks like this. It basically is, most companies put stamp this on the invoice. It says, I just declare that these goods qualify for the general preferential tariff, least developed country tariff, Commonwealth Caribbean country tariff, and they certify that the good does qualify. Sometimes you're still getting these documents called Form A's. Now, the Form A is in place of the exporter's certificate of origin, statement of origin, I should say. And one thing you have to understand is it has to say the word Form A on it right here. It's usually green, okay? And it says basically this good qualifies for the general system of preferences, general preferential tariff, as well as least developed country tariff, as well as Commonwealth Caribbean country tariff. This form here on the right is the incorrect form. This is just a certificate of origin saying the goods come from the People's Republic of China. Some countries, Canada not included, some countries require a certificate of origin for just to clear customs for most favored nation. So a lot of times you'll see this document with a shipment to Canada because they wanted to make sure, weren't sure whether we required a certificate of origin or not, so they fill it out. This form is useless for any preferential tariff treatment. It's this form you must have. Okay. United States tariff means the shipment qualifies for the Canada-US-Mexico agreement, and a certificate of origin or a written certification is in the importer's possession at time of clearance. This certificate of origin looks like this. So the Canada-US-Mexico agreement, CUSMA, certificate of origin, and it tells the HS tariff number, what the item is, that it qualifies for the free trade agreements. The ones we're talking about now, from now on, are free trade agreements. Code 11 is Mexican tariff. CUSMA certificate of origin is in the importer's possession. The certificate of origin is exactly the same document because this is part of CUSMA, but the shipment's coming from Mexico. Canada-Israel free trade agreement. You have a certificate of origin. The certificate of origin has to be with the shipment or in the importer's possession at time of clearance. Remember, it's the exporter who fills out certificate of origins. You don't have to worry about filling it out. The exporter in the other country fills it out. It just has to be in front of you so you can see it. If you don't have a certificate of origin in front of you or a statement of origin, it is tariff treatment 2, most favored nation. Chilean tariff. We have a shipment from Chile, and the shipment accompanying the shipment is this document. It's called a certificate of origin saying the good qualifies for the Canada-Chile free trade agreement, as you can see. Okay. There's the Canada-Costa Rica, which is code 21. Canada-Iceland, code 22. Canada-Norway, code 23. Canada-Switzerland-Liechtenstein, code 24. Canada-Peru. Here's a copy of the Canada-Peru, and you'll notice these documents all look pretty much the same. All of them have the HS number, and all of them have the description and who the producer was and who the exporter is and who the importer is on it. They're all very similarly set up. And you'll learn about these in ITA 341. All you have to worry about now is having it in front of you in order to clear the shipment through customs at a lesser rate of duty than most favored nation. Canada-Colombia tariff. There's a Canada-Jordanian free trade agreement. There's a Canada-Panama free trade agreement. A Canada-Honduras free trade agreement. A Canada-South Korean free trade agreement. Again, the certificate is very familiar. It looks just like the other certificates of origin. It has the exporter, the importer, the producer, and it has the description and the HS tariff classification. Pardon me. Okay. Canada-European free trade agreement. Now this is a little bit more involved because it is not just one country, it's many countries. So if a shipment comes from any one of these countries and we have a statement of origin on the invoice saying it qualifies, we can use code 31 for a lesser and a duty-free, because this is a free trade agreement. Code 32 is Canada-Ukraine free trade agreement. Code 33 is the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which is Australia, New Zealand, Mexico, Singapore, Vietnam, Brunei, Chile, Malaysia, and Peru. If we have a shipment from any of these countries and we have a statement of origin, okay, on the commercial invoice, we get to have it be duty-free. Okay, so when we have no statement of origin, no certificate of origin, or you have nothing, all you have is a commercial invoice or a Canada Customs invoice, it's most favored nation. If it's North Korea, it's general tariff, which is not on here. General tariff is 35%. If the shipment has one of these documents that I just went through, let's use Canada-US-Mexico agreement. We have a shipment from Mexico, and it's the Canada-US-Mexico agreement free trade certificate with it. We can now go over to this column, and we look for the short form for the Mexican tariff. Mexican tariff. Okay? And Mexican tariff means it's duty-free. Okay? So that's how we get into this column. We have to have that specific document to get over here. So when you're doing a shipment, and you're going to be doing a B3 this week that has one of the items on it qualifying for the Canada-U.S.-Mexico agreement. One of 3 different things you must have. A, I must tell you that the good qualifies for the Canada-U.S.-Mexican agreement, or I give you a copy of the certificate, or I give you a copy of the statement of origin. If I don't do any one of those 3 things, I didn't tell you it qualifies, I didn't give you a certificate, I didn't give you a statement of origin, it's most favored nation, this column. Okay? Really, really important. Like I told you before, let me just get out of this because I want to go back to the first screens. What we're talking about here is this field of the customs tariff. Tariff treatment. We've been using 2. But if we have a shipment from the United States and it has a Canada-U.S.-Mexico Free Trade Agreement certificate with it, we can change this. If the shipment's from the United States, we can change this to tariff treatment 10. Because remember, the Canada, let's go here, here. The U.S. tariff is tariff treatment 10, okay? Because Canada, the tariff treatment 10 is the U.S. tariff under CUSMA. If we have that, we can put a 10 in here. And the 10 means this is duty free. Okay. Now you have to be careful because this, the duty free aspect may not necessarily be in place every single time. If the shipment is under a free trade agreement, okay, then it will be free. And most of these preferential tariff treatments are free, as you can see. All of these, okay, and these short forms stand for the various tariff treatments: least developed country tariff, U.S. tariff, Mexican tariff, Israel tariff, Chilean tariff, Costa Rican tariff, Norwegian tariff. All these items are usually free, okay? Occasionally, some of them are just lesser rates of duty. This is the Australian tariff, New Zealand tariff. So it's still better than paying 18%, but they're not free. They're just lesser rates of duty. It all depends on the documents that you have. If you have no documents other than the invoice, it's most favored nation. It doesn't matter what country it comes from, unless it's North Korea. If it comes from the United States and there's no documents, it's most favored nation. It comes from Mexico, there's no documents, it's most favored nation. It comes from Mexico and you have a free trade agreement, you can use MT, Mexican tariff, free. If it comes from the United States and you have a certificate of origin for the free trade agreement, we can use U.S. tariff, free. U.S. tariff, free. So it all depends on what I tell you. So what we're going to do is we're going to give you an assignment to do, and I'll go through the assignment and show you how to determine whether it qualifies and where to get the duty rate to make it easy on you. Because this particular shipment is also going to have more than one subheader. So look forward to that, and we'll talk to you soon.